The morning Jeremiah was released, the air felt different. Clean, open, almost too bright after so many weeks of measured schedules and fluorescent halls. Sheldon was waiting outside, sharp as ever in a pressed navy suit, leaning against his car like he'd been there for hours. When Jeremiah spotted him, something in his chest loosened. Sheldon smiled, small, restrained, but real. He noticed Jeremiah's hair. Gone were the neat rows he used to keep tight as a habit. In their place, a short curly fro hugged his head, soft, tight coils. "You look good," he said as Jeremiah approached. "Healthier. I'm proud of you." Jeremiah looked down, embarrassed by the warmth that bloomed in his chest. "Feels good to be out." They drove in near silence at first, the hum of the highway filling the space between them. Eventually, Sheldon glanced over. "You ever think about what comes next?" Jeremiah shrugged. "Not really. Guess I just want to do something different this time." He hesitated, then added, "I always liked houses. Not just living in them, how they're built. The lines, the woodwork. When I was a kid, I used to draw floor plans in my school notebooks." Sheldon's brow lifted. "Architecture," Jeremiah chuckled softly. "More like doodling. I never thought it could turn into anything real." But Sheldon was already thinking. He knew people, developers, contractors, the kind of men who shook his hand at fundraisers and bragged about their latest restoration projects. One name rose to the surface, a construction company on the west side that specialized in traditional carpentry, solid, respectable work. A week later, Sheldon showed up at the studio with a business card. "Apprenticeship," he said, sliding it across the table. "Starts Monday. They'll teach you the craft, carpentry, restoration, everything from frame to finish. You said you liked houses? Well, here's your chance to build one." Jeremiah stared at the card, fingers brushing the embossed letters. "You did this?" Sheldon shrugged, a flicker of pride slipping through his composure. "Pulled a few strings. Don't make me regret it." Jeremiah's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "Thank you. I won't waste it." Sheldon nodded. "See that you don't." For the first time in a long time, Jeremiah felt something other than survival. A purpose, steady and real. The morning smelled of sawdust and wet earth. Jeremiah stepped out of the bus, his boots crunching on gravel, eyes drawn to the skeleton of a house rising against the sky. Wooden beams stood like ribs, open to the sun, workers moving across them with practiced ease. He swallowed hard, adjusting the strap of his tool belt. His stomach fluttered, a mix of nerves and excitement he hadn't felt in years. A broad-shouldered man in a flannel shirt approached, clipboard tucked under one arm. "You must be Jeremiah." "Yes, sir," Jeremiah said quickly. The man's handshake was firm, his eyes sharp but not unkind. "Name's Russell. I run the crew." Sheldon said, "You had an interest in the trade." "Well, around here, we learn by doing. You ready for that?" Jeremiah nodded. "I'm ready." Russell led him through the site, pointing out the framework, the scaffolding, the stacks of cut lumber waiting to be placed. "This company believes in tradition," he explained. "No shortcuts. We build homes that last. If you're going to be here, you got to respect the craft." "Yes, sir," Jeremiah repeated, and meant it. They started simple, measuring boards, holding planks steady while another worker cut, carrying lumber across the site. His arms ached fast, sweat soaking through his shirt, but Jeremiah didn't complain. For once, he felt like the pain meant something. By midday, Russell handed him a chisel and showed him how to notch a joint. Jeremiah's hands trembled at first, the tool biting into the wood uneven. He gritted his teeth, tried again, adjusting his grip the way Russell showed him. This time, the cut was cleaner, straighter. Russell clapped him on the shoulder. Not bad. You get the hang of it. Jeremiah let out a slow breath. It wasn't much, just one joint in one beam of one house. But it was his. As the sun dipped lower, the crew packed up. Jeremiah looked back at the rising frame, wood glowing gold in the evening light. For the first time in a long time, he felt grounded. His body was sore, his palms blistered. But inside, there was a spark he hadn't known in years. He was building something, and it might just be the start of building himself. Jeremiah came through the studio door still buzzing from the day. His shirt was streaked with sweat and sawdust, but his grin stretched wide. Annie, he called. You should have seen me out there. First cut I made was crooked, but by the end of the day, he stopped. Ania was on the couch, her eyes red, a crumpled tissue in her hand. The pride in his chest dimmed in an instant. He dropped his tool bag by the door and crossed the room. What's wrong? He asked, crouching in front of her. She shook her head, tried to smile, but her voice cracked. The financial aid office called. They found out about my mama's income. I didn't put her information down because I haven't lived with her since I was 15. But they said it don't matter. They're caught it anyway. Jeremiah's stomach sank. So what that mean? Ania's shoulders sagged. It means I don't qualify. No aid, no classes. I gotta drop out. Her eyes filled again, and she buried her face in her hands. I was so close, Jay. I thought I finally had a way out. Jeremiah asked if it was possible for her to reconcile with her mother. She swallowed, looking out the window. I left because my mama's husband was touching on me. I told her, and she ain't believe me. She drew a shaky breath. When we were at the shelter, you never asked why I was there, and I didn't ask you either. Felt like a line we didn't cross unless somebody offered. Amia didn't know how much Jeremiah's story paralleled her own. Jeremiah sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Hey, listen to me. His voice was firm, steady in a way he didn't always feel. It ain't over. You still gonna be a nurse. You hear me? Aniana sniffled. How? I can't pay for it. I can. He leaned back to catch her eyes. I'm making money now. You stay in school. I'll keep the lights on till you figure out another way. Ania stared at him, stunned. You'd really do that? Jeremiah gave a half smile, tired but certain. Course I would. We in this together, right? She blinked hard, then laughed through her tears, shaking her head. You something else, Jeremiah. He pulled her close again, letting her rest against him. His muscles ached from the day's labor, but his heart felt stronger than it had in a long time. For once, he wasn't just surviving. He was holding someone else up, too. The sun was low over Cascade Springs, spilling orange light through the trees and setting the water aglow. Jeremiah sat on one of the benches near the trail, his car parked neatly in the gravel lot behind him, the first thing in his life that felt like his own, even if Sheldon's name was stamped on the papers. When Sheldon arrived, his steps crisp against the path, Jeremiah looked up and smiled faintly. How was your day? Sheldon asked, settling onto the bench beside him. Good, Jeremiah said. Work solid. I'm getting better with the tools. Russell says I'm picking it up quick. He paused, then shifted, his expression clouding. But there is something I need to talk to you about. Sheldon turned, curious. What is it? It's Amia. Jeremiah's voice softened. She had to drop out of school. Financial aid office pulled her application when they found out about her mama's income. She's been on her own since she was 15, but they don't care about that. Now she can't afford tuition. Sheldon exhaled slowly, already sensing where this was going. Jeremiah pressed on. Look, I'm making money now, but it ain't enough. I told her I'd help with her tuition, but that means I can't cover rent too. I was hoping... He hesitated, then met Sheldon's eyes. I was hoping you could keep paying the studio rent, at least for a while, so I can put what I earn towards Ennia's school. Sheldon's jaw tightened. His instinct was to say no, to remind Jeremiah this wasn't supposed to be charity, that their arrangement already cost him enough. But he looked at Jeremiah sitting there in the fading light, shoulders squared with a quiet resolve he hadn't seen before. This wasn't the boy chasing a high anymore. This was a man asking for help, not just for himself, but for someone else. Reluctantly, Sheldon nodded. All right, I'll keep covering the rent. Jeremiah let out a breath, relief flooding his face. Thank you. This means a lot. To her. To me. Sheldon leaned back on the bench. Don't make me regret it. I won't, Jeremiah said firmly. And for once, Sheldon believed him. The house in Cascade Heights was quiet, except for the clatter of silverware. Dinner had been laid out with Denise's usual care. Smothered pork chops with mashed potatoes, green beans, and cornbread, but Sheldon hardly tasted it. He moved the food around his plate, his mind running in numbers instead of flavors. Denise noticed. You've been distracted lately. Sheldon forced a small smile. Just work. And she studied him, her fork pausing. Work seems to be costing us more than it's bringing in. Sheldon stiffened. What makes you say that? The accounts, Denise said simply. I handle the bills, Sheldon. I see the balances. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You've been pulling money out of savings? A lot of it. Where's it going? Sheldon set down his fork, measuring his words. Clients aren't always clean, Denise. You know that. Sometimes they need extra help to get through a case. Rehab, housing, things to keep them steady until trial. Denise's brow arched. Housing? You're paying rent for this boy? It's temporary, Sheldon said quickly, until he gets on his feet. If we win his case, it'll pay off. For him and for me. Denise leaned back, her gaze sharp. Or it'll ruin you. These aren't charity cases, Sheldon. You've worked too hard to risk everything on someone who's just... She stopped herself, shaking her head. I don't understand why this one matters so much. Sheldon's jaw tightened. He looked down at his plate, then back at her. Because he does. The words hung in the air, heavier than he intended. Denise searched his face, suspicion dangling in her eyes. Before she could press further, their daughter Alana came running in from the living room, chattering about a school project. Denise turned toward her, but the silence between husband and wife remained, thick and unresolved. Sheldon sipped his water, hiding the storm in his chest. Supporting Jeremiah was already costing him more than money. Denise had learned long ago that silence could be sharper than any accusation. So when Sheldon brushed off her questions with talk of clients and cases, she didn't argue. She smiled, cleared the dishes, and let him think the matter was closed. But she didn't forget. 2 weeks later, she sat in her car outside a small office park downtown, her hands folded tight in her lap. The sign on the door read, Evans and Associates Investigations. A private investigator. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and paper. A middle-aged man with a graying beard shook her hand and gestured for her to sit. My husband, Denise began, voice calm but laced with steel. Sheldon Brown, prominent civil rights attorney. Lately, he's been distant, and money's been disappearing. A lot of it. The investigator leaned forward. You think he's having an affair? Denise pressed her lips together, then nodded. That's the only thing that makes sense. The late nights, the lies about clients, the way he gets defensive when I ask too many questions. She slid a photo of Sheldon across the desk. I need to know who she is. I need to know where the money is going. The investigator pocketed the photo, scribbling notes on a yellow pad. Consider it done. If there's a woman, we'll find her. Denise stood to leave, her chin lifted, her steps firm. She thought she was bracing herself for the face of another woman. What she didn't know was that the truth was more complicated and more dangerous than any affair she could have imagined.